I am Ellie Martinez, 27 years old. On a cold spring evening in New York City, in the middle of my best friend's rooftop birthday party, my boyfriend stood in front of everyone and announced he was leaving me. For her. The fairy lights strung across the skyline blurred through the sting of my tears. Laughter around me turned into shocked whispers. Glasses clinked and then went silent, and the music cut awkwardly as someone lowered the volume. I remember the exact feeling, my chest tightening, my hands numb around the stem of my untouched wine glass, the city's heartbeat still pulsing far below us as my own world fell apart. The rooftop was everything you'd expect in Manhattan. Brick walls painted with murals, candlelit tables, a DJ booth tucked in the corner, and a skyline view so breathtaking it almost mocked me. My so-called friend, Maya, stood just 2 steps away, her perfect hair falling over her shoulder, pretending to look embarrassed while she hid a smirk. My boyfriend, Austin, avoided my eyes. Instead, he grabbed her hand like he'd already practiced the move in a mirror. The betrayal wasn't quiet. It wasn't whispered in secret. It was loud, humiliating, and deliberate. And for a moment, I swore the whole city had stopped to watch me break. Before I share how this betrayal unfolded, let me know where you are watching from and subscribe if you value standing up for yourself. Growing up in Queens, I was used to fighting for attention. My parents worked endless shifts at a diner, barely home enough to see me grow, so I found my identity through art. At 14, I saved up for a secondhand camera, wandering around the streets, capturing slices of life, the graffiti on subway cars, kids chasing basketballs in the park, the way sunlight hits skyscrapers at golden hour. Photography became my refuge, my proof that beauty could exist even in chaos. That passion carried me through college and into my career as a fashion photographer in Manhattan. It wasn't glamorous at first, long hours, rejection, unpaid shoots, but slowly I built a name. By 27, I had my own studio loft in Brooklyn, rented with more pride than practicality, and my work was finally being featured in magazines. People started to know my name, and with that success came people orbiting me. That's how Austin entered my life. He wasn't a model or in the fashion industry at all. He was a financial analyst, buttoned up, neat, and serious in ways that calmed me. At least that's how I thought of him in the beginning. His stability was everything my chaotic, creative life wasn't. He made me laugh with dry humor, bought me coffee at sunrise shoots, and always told me he believed in me. Maya had been in my life long before Austin. She and I had met at 17 in an art elective, where she painted and I photographed. She was magnetic, loud, confident, the type of girl people noticed when she entered a room. At first, I admired her. Later, I learned to live in her shadow. People always chose Maya first, her parties, her stories, her laugh. But I convinced myself that didn't matter. She was my friend, and I was lucky to have her. When Austin and I got serious, it only seemed natural to introduce him to her. I thought I was merging 2 worlds that meant everything to me. Instead, I had unknowingly set myself up for the greatest humiliation of my life. That night on the rooftop, the betrayal didn't come out of nowhere, though it felt like it. Looking back, the signs were there. Maya texting Austin just to check on him when he had a cold. The way she leaned in too close when laughing at his jokes. The mysterious excuses he gave for being late. The subtle shift in his tone when we argued and he compared me, unknowingly, or not, to her. I ignored it all because I wanted to, believe the 2 people I trusted most would never conspire, against me. But when Austin cleared his throat, holding Maya's hand like it was a lifeline, and said, "Ellie, I can't do this anymore. I'm in love with Maya," the illusion shattered. Gasps rippled through the guests, and someone even dropped their glass, the sound splintering through the silence. I remember standing there, rooted to the spot. My mind screamed at me to react, to throw the wine in his face, to scream at her, to run, but my body betrayed me. I stayed still, blinking back tears, my throat too tight to breathe. "Ellie, I didn't mean for it to happen like this," Austin stammered, his words hollow, rehearsed. Maya tilted her head, putting on a show of sympathy, as if she weren't basking in the drama. "Ellie, she started. "Don't," I finally croaked, my voice hoarse but sharp enough to cut her sentence in half. "Just don't." The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Some guests tried to act like they hadn't heard, sipping their drinks nervously. Others stared openly, feeding off the spectacle. It was New York. People thrived on drama even when it wasn't theirs. I turned and walked toward the elevator, my legs shaking but determined not to collapse in front of them. Each step was agony, the sound of my heels clicking against the concrete louder than the muffled whispers. When the elevator doors finally closed, I caught my reflection in the mirrored walls, mascara smudged, lipstick fading, but eyes burning. That was the night something inside me cracked. The next morning, I woke up in my studio apartment with the city roaring outside as if nothing had changed. But for me, everything had. My phone buzzed endlessly. Messages from friends, some pitying, some prying. Austin had tried calling once, and Maya sent a single text. "You'll understand someday." Understand? The betrayal wasn't just about love. It was about loyalty, friendship, and respect. They had stolen all three in one night. And as I lay there staring at the cracked ceiling, I made a silent promise. I wouldn't let this define me as the girl who got humiliated. I'd make them remember me for something else entirely. But promises are one thing. Living up to them is another. At first, I did what most broken-hearted people do. I cried into my pillow, ignored calls, drowned myself in work. My camera lens became a shield between me and the world. Every shoot, every click was a distraction. But deep down, the anger simmered. And anger, I would soon learn, could be turned into something powerful. By the end of that week, whispers about Austin and Maya were already spreading beyond our friend group. In New York's tight-knit creative circles, nothing stayed quiet for long. Some sympathized with me, others gossiped about them. But one thing was certain. The story was out there, and it was only the beginning. The morning after the rooftop betrayal, I woke up in my Brooklyn studio feeling like the world had pressed pause on my life. Sunlight crept through the half-open blinds, casting long stripes across my hardwood floor. My camera bag sat untouched in the corner, lenses still packed from a shoot I'd abandoned midway through earlier that week. It felt like someone else's apartment, someone else's life, and I was just passing through the wreckage. The first thing I did was check my phone. It was a mistake. Dozens of notifications flooded the screen, missed calls, texts, and even social media tags. People were talking about it already, treating my humiliation like an episode of reality TV. One text made me throw my phone onto the bed in disgust. It was from Maya. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way. Austin and I didn't plan it. It just happened. You'll understand one day. Understand? No apology, no acknowledgement of the cruelty, just an expectation that I'd roll over and accept it." That was Maya in a nutshell, always convinced the world should forgive her because of her charm. I didn't reply. Instead, I sat on the edge of my bed, hands clenched into fists, fighting the urge to scream. I wanted to go back in time, to stop myself from ever introducing Austin to her, to erase the moment he looked at her like she was something I wasn't. But life doesn't give do-overs. It only gives choices, survive or collapse. That afternoon, my best friend outside of Maya, yes, I still had one, showed up uninvited. Her name was Jordan. We had met in college, both of us broke, working part-time jobs and sharing secondhand textbooks. She had been my anchor through years of chaos. And unlike Maya, she never made me feel small. "Open up." "Ellie," she called through the door, knocking hard enough that my neighbor peeked out from across the hall. I shuffled to the door, my reflection in the mirror on the wall catching my eye as I passed. Puffy eyes, hair knotted, yesterday's makeup smeared. I almost didn't open it. But Jordan wasn't someone you could ignore. She barged in the second the door unlocked. "Carrying 2 paper bags, bagels and coffee," she announced. "You're not allowed to wallow without carbs." I tried to laugh, but it came out as a broken sound. She set the bags down, studied me, and then pulled me into a hug so tight it cracked the dam. For the first time since the rooftop, I cried, ugly, messy sobs into her shoulder. When I finally pulled back, Jordan wiped my tears with the cuff of her sleeve. "Listen to me. They don't get to define you. "You're Ellie freaking Martinez. You fought harder than anyone I know to get here. Don't you dare let two selfish idiots take that away." Her words landed like oxygen. She was right. I had survived worse. My parents' absence, years of rejection, scraping by in the city with nothing but a dream and a camera. If I had built a life from that, I could survive this too. But surviving meant facing the fallout. The next week was brutal. Everywhere I went, whispers followed. People from the rooftop party spread the story like wildfire. Some looked at me with pity, others with fascination, as if waiting to see if I'd collapse publicly. Even work wasn't safe. At a photo shoot for a small fashion label, one of the models leaned over during makeup and whispered, "Aren't you the girl whose boyfriend left her for her best friend?" The words were casual, almost gleeful. I forced a smile and pretended not to care, but inside I wanted to crawl out of my own skin. That night, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, makeup wipes in hand, and made myself a promise. If people wanted to watch me, I'd give them something worth watching. Not the girl who was broken, the girl who rose from it. The first step was cutting Maya out of my life. For years I had tolerated her digs, her manipulations, her backhanded compliments disguised as jokes. I told myself she was just being Maya. But deep down, I knew she thrived on control. Her betrayal with Austin was just the final act of a play she'd been rehearsing for years. I blocked her number, unfollowed her on every platform, and packed away every photo that had her smile in it. It wasn't easy, like amputating a limb you'd relied on, even if it was infected. But I needed to heal, and she was poison. Austin tried too, of course. He texted me twice that week. The first, "I didn't want to hurt you. I just couldn't fight how I feel about her." The second, "I hope someday we can talk." I never replied. I knew if I gave him even one line of response, he'd think the door was still open. And I was done opening doors for people who only came in to wreck the place. Instead, I turned to my camera. It became therapy. I wandered through New York at night, capturing the loneliness of neon-lit diners, strangers smoking on stoops, couples kissing under street lamps, cab drivers leaning against their cars between rides. Every shot was a piece of me stitched back together. One evening, I took my photos to a gallery contact I had been chasing for months. Her name was Marisol, a sharp-eyed curator with no patience for mediocrity. I laid my prints across her desk, my hands shaking. She studied them in silence, flipping through one by one. Finally, she looked up and said, "These aren't just pictures, Ellie. They're stories. Painful, raw stories. People will feel this." That was the first time in weeks I felt something like hope. Marisol offered me a spot in a group exhibition, small but significant. It wasn't just about showcasing my work. It was about proving to myself that my worth wasn't tied to Austin or Maya. But even as my career flickered with new light, nights were still hard. I'd lie awake replaying the rooftop moment over and over, torturing myself with questions. Was I not enough? Had Austin ever truly loved me? Had Maya ever been my friend at all? Or had she always been waiting for her chance? Jordan, ever persistent, forced me out of my cave when she could. One night over greasy pizza, she leaned across the booth and said, "Ellie, stop asking what's wrong with you. Start asking what's wrong with people who can betray someone like you. That's where the blame belongs." I stared at her, letting the words sink in. She was right. I had been so busy dissecting my flaws, I forgot to place accountability where it belonged. On them. The exhibition came faster than I expected. Walking into the gallery, seeing my photographs framed on white walls under soft lighting was surreal. People I didn't know lingered in front of them, pointing, whispering, sometimes even tearing up. They weren't just looking at images. They were looking at me, my pain, my story. By the end of the night, 2 pieces had sold. Marisol pulled me aside and said, This is just the beginning. Keep creating like this, and New York will know your name." As I left the gallery, clutching a bouquet of flowers Jordan had shoved into my arms, I realized something important. Maya and Austin had taken so much from me, but they had also given me a gift without knowing it. They had forced me to confront who I really was, and who I was meant to become. And that was only the start. The night of the exhibition should have ended with celebration, but instead I went home with an ache that burned deeper than any applause could soothe. Yes, people admired my work. Yes, 2 photos sold. But the moment the door to my studio clicked shut, I was alone again, and silence filled the room like smoke after a fire. I sat cross-legged on the floor, the bouquet Jordan gave me resting beside me, petals already starting to wilt. The city hummed outside, subway brakes screeching, sirens wailing in the distance, couples laughing as they walked home. It all felt miles away. I should have been proud. Instead, my mind circled the same thought like a vulture. They're probably laughing right now. I imagined Maya and Austin curled up together, whispering jokes at my expense, their betrayal transforming into inside humor. The thought made bile rise in my throat. The next morning, I dragged myself to the gym. Photography kept my spirit alive, but movement was the only thing that grounded me. I pounded the treadmill until sweat poured down my temples, until every muscle in my legs screamed, until exhaustion drowned out the memory of that rooftop. When I slowed to a walk, I caught my reflection in the gym mirror. My face was flushed, hair damp with sweat, but for the first time in weeks I saw fire in my eyes, a kind of defiance, a promise that I wouldn't let them win. That day, I decided something. If my ex and my ex-best friend thought they could write me off, I'd prove them wrong. Not by begging for closure, but by building a life so strong, so undeniable, that their betrayal would pale in comparison. I began with routine. Every morning, I woke up at 6 a.m., ran until my lungs burned, and then spent hours with my camera. Some days, I shadowed Jordan's marketing job downtown, photographing street campaigns. Other days, I immersed myself in neighborhoods I'd never explored. Chinatown markets, Harlem jazz clubs, Queens food festivals. I photographed faces lined with stories, hands busy with craft, children chasing each other through hydrant spray in the summer heat. Life teemed with details, and the more I captured, the less space Maya and Austin took up in my head. But still, at night, doubt crept in. Was I creating because I loved it, or because I was desperate to prove something? The line blurred so much, I couldn't tell the difference. One evening, Jordan invited me to a rooftop gathering. Ironic, considering rooftops had become synonymous with my humiliation. I almost said no, but her persistence wore me down. "You can't hide forever," she told me. "Besides, these aren't fake socialites. These are artists, real people. You'll fit in." The rooftop wasn't glossy like Maya's party. It was messy. Folding chairs, fairy lights strung haphazardly, coolers filled with cheap beer. But the people? They buzzed with life. A saxophonist played in the corner while a graffiti artist live-painted on a canvas propped against the railing. For once, I didn't feel like a spectacle. I felt like I belonged. Halfway through the night, I met Aaron, a filmmaker. He noticed the camera slung over my shoulder. "You shoot?" he asked, leaning against the railing, a cigarette dangling loosely from his lips. "I do," I said cautiously. "Mostly street photography." "Street's the best teacher," he replied. "Mind if I see some?" I hesitated, but something in his tone felt genuine. I pulled up my portfolio on my phone, bracing myself for a dismissive nod. Instead, he studied each frame carefully, his brows knitting in concentration. When he finally looked up, he said, "You've got an eye. Not just for composition, for emotion. People feel something when they look at these. You ever thought about doing documentary work?" The word stuck with me. Documentary. I had always been drawn to truth, to capturing raw humanity. Maybe this was the path I hadn't yet considered. Aaron and I started collaborating. He'd take me along on shoots, small projects at first, short reels about neighborhood activists or underground musicians. I'd photograph while he filmed, our perspectives weaving together. He taught me about storytelling beyond the frame, about how every image could tie into a larger narrative. It lit something in me I hadn't felt since before Austin. A hunger not just to survive, but to thrive. But with every spark of growth came shadows of the past. Maya still lingered in my peripheral vision. Friends sent me screenshots of her posts, pictures of her and Austin smiling at trendy brunch spots, hashtags flaunting their new beginning. Every time I saw them, jealousy and rage tangled like barbed wire in my chest, Jordan noticed. "You've got to stop checking up on them," she warned one night as we split fries at a diner. "You're giving them free rent in your head." "I'm not checking," I lied, stabbing a fry with unnecessary force. "It just shows up." Jordan raised an eyebrow. "You deserve better than to be haunted by two clowns. Focus on the people who actually believe in you." Her words stung, but they were true. I had let Maya control the narrative for too long. It was time to reclaim it. The turning point came unexpectedly. Aaron and I were working on a project about a community garden in the Bronx. We interviewed volunteers who turned abandoned lots into lush green sanctuaries. Their pride, their resilience, it mirrored what I wanted for myself. Afterward, as we packed up, Aaron said, "Ellie, you should think bigger. These stories deserve a larger audience. So do you." That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling fans spinning in lazy circles. He was right. Why should I play small, letting bitterness shrink me? Why not aim for something that could redefine me entirely? The next morning, I wrote down a plan. Not just for a project, but for my future. I would create a series, photographs and short films, that told the stories of overlooked New Yorkers. The hustlers, the dreamers, the fighters. People like me. Pursuing the project wasn't easy. Money was tight, and I had to juggle paid gigs to fund my passion. But every setback fueled me, every no from a potential sponsor hardened my resolve. I wasn't just doing this for me anymore. I was doing it for every person who had ever been silenced, dismissed, or betrayed, and somewhere deep down, I knew I was also doing it to prove Maya and Austin wrong, to show them that I didn't crumble when they abandoned me. I transformed. One rainy afternoon, I received an email from Marisol, the curator who had given me my first gallery chance. She had seen glimpses of my new work on social media. Her message was short but electrifying. "When it's ready, I want to see the full series. This has potential. Potential." The word pulsed through me like electricity. For the first time since that rooftop betrayal, I felt like my life was steering in the right direction, not away from pain, but toward purpose. I looked at my reflection in the rain-streaked window. This wasn't the broken girl who had sobbed into Jordan's shoulder. This was someone new, someone lit from within, someone dangerous to anyone who had ever underestimated her. And I whispered to myself, this is just the beginning. The email from Marisol had given me momentum, but momentum doesn't erase the past. The ghosts of betrayal don't just vanish because you found a new path. They wait in shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. That moment came sooner than I expected. It was a Saturday morning, gray clouds hanging low over the Manhattan skyline. I was sipping burnt coffee from the corner bodega, flipping through shots I had taken the night before. When my phone buzzed, the notification froze me in place. New follower, Maya Delgado. For a second, I thought my eyes deceived me. Maybe there was another Maya Delgado, but no, it was her profile, perfectly curated. As always, with polished selfies, rooftop brunches, and captions dripping with faux positivity, and now, she was following me again. My stomach tightened. Why now? Why after months of silence? After choosing Austin over me? After painting me as jealous and bitter? I set my coffee down, the cup trembling in my hand. Curiosity won. I tapped her profile, scanning through her recent posts. She looked the same. Gorgeous, confident, untouchable. But in the comments, I noticed cracks, friends consoling her, vague captions about starting over, cryptic references to heartbreak. Austin wasn't in a single photo, not one. I tried to brush it off. Maybe they'd broken up. Maybe she wanted to gloat by showing me how well she was doing. But no matter how much I told myself it didn't matter, my mind spiraled back to that rooftop night, the sting of betrayal sharper than ever. Later that afternoon, I met Jordan at a cozy cafe in the West Village. She took one look at my pale face and asked, "What happened now?" "Maya followed me," I muttered, pushing my phone across the table. Jordan's eyes scanned the screen. Then she leaned back with a bitter laugh. "Oh, now she wants to play nice? Convenient timing. Looks like her golden romance tanked." The words should have satisfied me, but instead, unease lingered. Was Maya reaching out for reconciliation? Or was this just another manipulation? "Don't engage," Jordan warned. "You've worked too hard to heal. Don't let her suck you back in." But healing isn't linear. The wounds she left had only scabbed over, and now she was scratching at them again. That night, I lay awake scrolling through my messages, half hoping Maya would DM me, half dreading it. By 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was her. "Ellie, can we talk? I know I don't deserve it, but please. I need to explain." My pulse raced. Part of me wanted to delete it immediately. Another part of me, the part still craving answers, ached to respond. After 30 agonizing minutes, I typed one word, "Why?" Her reply came instantly. "Because I was wrong. About everything." The next day, against Jordan's advice, I agreed to meet Maya. We chose a neutral spot, a quiet tea shop in Soho. When she walked in, I barely recognized her. The confident posture, the designer outfit, it was all there. But her eyes were swollen, her smile brittle. She looked broken. "Ellie," she whispered, sliding into the seat across from me. Her voice trembled. "I know I'm the last person you want to see, but I need you to hear me out." I folded my arms, my chest tight. "You have 5 minutes." Maya exhaled, her hands shaking as she gripped her cup. "Austin." He wasn't who I thought he was. At first I believed he loved me. He said all the right things. But over time, he changed. He became controlling, jealous. When my career hit a rough patch, he mocked me. And then he left, for someone else. I stared at her, my jaw clenched. The irony was bitter. "You mean, he did to you what you both did to me?" Her eyes filled with tears. "Yes, and I deserve it. I see that now. But Ellie, I need you to know I never stopped missing you. You were my best friend. I ruined everything." For a moment, I almost softened. This was the Maya I remembered. The girl who held my hand at my first heartbreak, who whispered secrets at sleepovers, who cheered for me louder than anyone else. But then, flashes of betrayal hit, her hand on Austin's arm, her smirk as she twisted the knife in front of everyone. "You don't get to rewrite history," I said coldly. "You didn't just make a mistake. You chose to humiliate me. You cut me out like I was disposable." Maya's lip quivered. "I know, and I hate myself for it. But I've lost everything, Ellie. I thought maybe we could start over." I left her there, unable to stomach more. The whole walk home, my emotions warred, fury, pity, longing, disgust. But mostly, I felt something new, a sense of power. For the first time, she was the one begging. Jordan listened to the whole story when I called her. "Don't let her back in," she said firmly. "History repeats itself. Don't trade your peace for her chaos." She was right, but even as I nodded, a small voice inside whispered, "What if she's telling the truth?" The following week, I poured my confusion into work. Aaron and I dove deeper into our documentary project, capturing stories of resilience across the city. We interviewed an immigrant mother who built a bakery from scratch, a retired boxer teaching kids discipline through sport, a street artist painting hope on crumbling walls. Each story reminded me that betrayal wasn't the end. It was the beginning of reinvention. These people had been overlooked, underestimated, dismissed, and yet they rose. Their strength seeped into me, fortifying my own resolve. But the past had a way of clawing back. One evening, while editing footage at Aaron's studio, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Maya. "Austin's trying to ruin me the way he ruined you. He's spreading lies, turning people against me. I don't know where else to go." I froze. It was like déjà vu. Except this time, she was the victim. And part of me, against all logic, wanted to help her. Aaron noticed my distraction. "You okay?" he asked gently. I looked at him, torn between anger and compassion. "Someone from my past keeps trying to pull me back," I admitted. "I don't know if helping her would make me strong or stupid." Aaron leaned back, considering. "Strength isn't about saving people who broke you. It's about choosing who deserves your energy. Maybe ask yourself this. If she hadn't lost everything, would she even be here?" The question hit like a punch. I already knew the answer. That night, I stared at Maya's message, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Finally, I typed, "I hope you figure things out. But I can't be part of your story anymore." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The weight lifted instantly. It wasn't closure from her. It was closure I gave myself. I realized something then. True healing doesn't come from apologies or explanations. It comes from choosing yourself, even when your heart wants to look back. And as I shut off my phone, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Peace. The silence after sending that final message to Maya was deafening. But it wasn't empty. It was filled with relief, with finality. For once, I wasn't waiting for her to define me, to validate me, or to hurt me again. I had chosen my own ending. But endings create space for beginnings, and my beginning was unfolding faster than I imagined. Aaron and I had been steadily working on our documentary series, pouring our hearts into capturing untold stories of resilience across New York City. Each interview lit a spark in me. People who had been dismissed, broken or betrayed, yet who had clawed their way back to hope. Their voices stitched together a quilt of survival, one I wrapped around myself on the nights doubt tried to creep in. One story in particular stayed with me. Maria, a seamstress from the Bronx. She had been cheated out of wages by a factory owner, left with nothing but debts and shame. But instead of giving up, she bought a used sewing machine, started altering clothes from her tiny apartment, and slowly built a thriving business. When she told us, tears glistened in her eyes. "They thought I was disposable," she said, softly. But I was stronger than they knew, her. Words echoed inside me like a drumbeat. Stronger than they knew. That's what I wanted my life to be. One evening, as Aaron and I wrapped up a late editing session, he leaned back in his chair. "Stretching. You know, Ellie," he said. "You're not just documenting resilience, you're living it. This series, it's as much your story as it is theirs." I blinked at him, caught off guard. "What do you mean?" He smiled faintly. "You've been through betrayal, humiliation, loss, but look at you now. You're creating something powerful out of it. You're turning pain into art. That's resilience." His words lodged in my chest like a spark catching flame. For the first time, I could see it too. Meanwhile, the city was waking up to our project. Aaron had a knack for networking, and soon clips of our work were being shared on social media. A local journalist caught wind of it and featured us in a small article. Two filmmakers spotlight resilience in the city that never sleeps. It wasn't a headline splashed across the Times, but it was a start. People began reaching out. Community leaders, activists, even strangers who wanted to share their own stories. My inbox filled with messages like, "Your work gave me hope," and "Thank you for showing the world that we matter." Every word strengthened me. brick by brick, building walls of confidence around the cracks Maya and Austin had left. But as my work gained light, shadows returned. One afternoon, while checking my messages at a crowded coffee shop, I froze. There it was. An email from Austin. I hadn't heard from him since the night he left me for Maya. Ellie, I know I don't deserve this, but can we talk? Things didn't turn out the way I thought. I made mistakes. I slammed my laptop shut so hard the woman next to me jumped. Not him. Not now. My hands shook as I gripped my coffee cup. I could almost hear his voice. The smooth charm he used to cover manipulation. The same charm that had hooked me years ago. But I wasn't the same woman anymore. When I showed Jordan, she rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might stick. Unbelievable. First Maya, now Austin. Do they have a secret pact to see who can crawl back to you first? I let out a bitter laugh. Seems like it. Ellie, don't you dare let him back in, she warned. He doesn't want reconciliation. He wants comfort. Big difference. I nodded, but deep inside, a swirl of emotions tangled together. Anger, temptation, curiosity. Why now? Why both of them? Circling back when I'd finally begun to breathe again, I decided to bury myself in work instead of answering. Aaron and I filmed in Harlem that week, documenting a youth boxing program keeping kids off the streets. Watching those boys and girls pour their fury into punching bags, I saw myself. Every jab, every hook, they were fighting for dignity, for survival, for proof that they mattered. Afterward, the coach, an old man with weathered hands and kind eyes, clapped me on the shoulder. You know, he said, pain is fuel, but only if you burn it for the right reasons. Otherwise, it'll burn you. I carried his words with me, turning them over in my mind like a stone in my pocket. Was I burning pain for the right reasons? Or was I letting Maya and Austin still live rent-free in my head? One evening, Aaron invited me to a rooftop screening of a small indie film festival in Brooklyn. It was raw, imperfect, but beautiful. Films about identity, injustice, resilience. As the credits rolled, he turned to me. Someday, that's going to be us. Your name up there. Your story told through the lens of everyone you've captured. The thought made my heart race. I wanted it more than anything. Not fame, not recognition, but proof that my pain hadn't been wasted, that it had been transformed into something bigger than me. Weeks passed, and slowly, the noise of Maya and Austin's return began to fade into the background. I didn't answer Maya's follow-up messages. I didn't open Austin's second email. Instead, I focused on the stories that mattered, the ones building a new foundation beneath me. But fate wasn't done testing me. One Friday night, as I left Aaron's studio, I ran straight into Austin on the sidewalk. He looked different. Hollow cheeks, tired eyes, his once polished appearance frayed around the edges. Ellie, he said, his voice rough. Please, just hear me out. Every muscle in my body tensed. Fight or flight colliding inside me. Memories flooded back. The betrayal. The humiliation. The nights I cried myself to sleep because of him. I stood tall, my voice steady. You don't get to ambush me. If you have something to say, put it in writing. But don't think for a second you can walk back into my life. He flinched, the weight of my words landing harder than any slap. For once, I saw him small, desperate, powerless. And in that moment, I realized the truth. I didn't need his apology. I didn't need his validation. I was already rising above the ashes he left me in. That night, lying in bed, I thought about Maria, about the boxers in Harlem, about every person who had clawed their way back from nothing. I was one of them now, no longer defined by betrayal, but by resilience. And as the city hummed outside my window, I whispered to myself the words I once thought I'd never believe again. I'm stronger than they knew. The encounter with Austin haunted me through the weekend. Not because I regretted what I said, if anything. It had felt powerful to finally speak without trembling. But because it was proof that the past had a way of circling back when you least wanted it. By Monday morning, I was pacing around my apartment, replaying his hollow face in my mind. His eyes had been pleading, almost childlike. And yet, it didn't stir the part of me that once loved him. It stirred pity, maybe, but love, no, that had burned away long ago. Still, the timing rattled me. Why now, just as my career was gaining traction? Why now, as I was finally stepping into my own power? Aaron noticed my distracted energy when I showed up at the studio that day. We were supposed to finalize edits for a screening we'd been invited to at a local university. Instead, I found myself staring blankly at the footage. "You're somewhere else," he said gently, not accusing, just observing. I sighed, rubbing my temples. I ran into Austin. He looks destroyed. He wanted me to listen. And I didn't. Aaron leaned back, crossing his arms. "Good." I blinked at him. "Good?" "Yes, good. Because it's not your job to carry his consequences. He made his choices, Ellie. You lived through the fallout. Now it's his turn." His words were sharp but grounding. I let out a slow breath. "You're right. It still shakes me." "That's normal," he said. "But don't confuse being shaken with being weak. They're not the same thing." The university screening turned out to be more significant than I expected. It wasn't a red carpet event, no flashing cameras, no glittering celebrities, just a lecture hall filled with students hungry for raw stories. We played a 20-minute cut of our documentary. As the credits rolled, the room erupted in applause, not polite claps, but genuine, heartfelt cheers. When a student raised her hand during the Q&A and said, "This made me feel like I can survive my own family's judgment," my chest tightened with emotion. Walking out of that hall, Aaron grinned at me. "See? This is just the beginning," and I believed him, but beginnings demand sacrifice. The deeper we went into the project, the less time I had for myself. Late nights blurred into early mornings. I ate more takeout than real meals, skipped workouts at the gym where I still coached part-time, and sometimes forgot to return calls from Jordan. One night, she stormed into my apartment without warning, holding 2 bags of takeout. "You're alive, right?" she demanded, tossing one bag on my table. "Because you've ghosted me for 2 weeks." I laughed weakly, guilt washing over me. "I'm sorry. I've just been busy." "I know," she cut in. "But Ellie, you can't pour from an empty cup. You're chasing this dream, and that's amazing, but don't forget you're still human." We sat down with the food, and she studied me between bites of noodles. "You look good, though. Stronger, like you're finally letting go of them." "I'm trying," I admitted, "but they keep popping up. Maya with her messages, Austin showing up on the street. It's like the universe won't let me forget." Jordan shook her head. "Or maybe the universe is testing you, to see if you'll slip back or if you'll stand firm." Her words landed like an anchor in my restless heart. Maybe that was it. Maybe every run-in wasn't meant to haunt me, but to measure how far I'd come. The turning point came a week later. Aaron and I received an email from a well-known nonprofit that supported young creators. They wanted to sponsor us, to fund our next project fully, cover travel, equipment, even living stipends. It was the kind of opportunity filmmakers dreamed of. I stared at the email, tears blurring my vision. Are we good enough for this?" I whispered. Aaron laughed in disbelief. "Ellie, we earned this. We're exactly good enough." I thought back to the girl sitting at Maya's engagement party, humiliated in front of everyone. My heart crushed and my voice silenced. That girl would never have believed this moment was possible. But here I was. Of course. With opportunity comes exposure. Our names began appearing online. Clips of me speaking at panels circulated, strangers commenting things like, "She's so inspiring," or, "You can feel her strength through her words." And that's when Maya resurfaced again, this time more aggressively. One morning, I woke to a string of text messages from her. "So you think you're some kind of star now? Everyone's talking about you, but they don't know the real you. You always wanted the spotlight. Ellie, you're pathetic." I stared at the screen, anger flaring but quickly cooling into something else. Recognition. This wasn't about me. This was about her. Her need to tear me down was proof that she was watching. that my growth was blinding her where she stood still. Instead of responding, I blocked her number. My hand shook slightly as I did it, but when the block was confirmed, I felt lighter. For the first time, I wasn't engaging. I wasn't defending myself. I was simply refusing to let her in. That same evening, Austin emailed me again, but this time, I didn't even open it. I archived it without hesitation, as easily as tossing out yesterday's trash. Jordan cheered when I told her. Finally, see, that's what healing looks like. Not when you stop feeling, but when you stop letting them control the narrative. And she was right. This was my narrative now, not theirs, the nonprofit. Sponsorship allowed us to dream bigger. Aaron suggested we expand the series to include international stories, traveling to communities around the world. The thought of leaving New York scared me, but it also thrilled me. If betrayal had once shrunk my world to tears and silence, now resilience was expanding it into something global. One night, as I stood on my balcony overlooking the pulsing lights of the city, I realized something important. I no longer wanted Maya and Austin to suffer. That hunger for revenge, once so sharp, had dulled. What I wanted was bigger, to live so fully, so unapologetically, that their betrayal became nothing more than a footnote in my story. The turning point wasn't just the sponsorship or the recognition. It was the quiet shift inside me, the realization that I no longer lived in reaction to them. I lived for the people whose stories deserved to be told. For the woman I was becoming, one who had walked through fire and found herself forged stronger. As I closed my eyes that night, I whispered to the stars above the city skyline, "This is only the beginning." The more my life expanded, the more it seemed Maya and Austin hovered like shadows at the edges. It didn't matter how many block buttons I pressed, or how many emails I deleted, the ghosts of betrayal were relentless. But something had changed. I wasn't afraid of them anymore. I was ready. That readiness was tested sooner than I expected. It started with a phone call. I was at the studio, reviewing footage of our latest interviews, when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. Normally, I would have ignored it, but instinct nudged me to answer. Ellie? The voice on the other end was unmistakable. Maya. I felt my spine stiffen. "What do you want?" I asked flatly. She gave a short, sharp laugh. "Straight to business, huh? No hello, no how are you? You lost the right to pleasantries years ago," I said. "What do you want?" There was silence. Then her tone shifted into a syrupy sweetness I knew too well. "I thought maybe we could meet. Clear the air. Everyone deserves a second chance, right?" My grip tightened on the phone. Second chance? She hadn't just hurt me. She had systematically dismantled my reputation among family and friends, leaving me to pick up the shards. "Where?" I asked finally, surprising even myself. We agreed to meet at a cafe in Midtown. The place was neutral territory, busy enough that neither of us could erupt without witnesses. When I arrived, Maya was already there, her perfect curls framing a face that hadn't aged gracefully. Stress lingered in the lines around her mouth, bitterness in the hard set of her jaw. She smiled when she saw me, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Ellie," she said, rising to give me a hug. I stepped back. "Don't." Her smile faltered, but she sat down again. We ordered coffees, the silence between us thick. Finally, she leaned forward. "I'll cut to the chase. I see your face everywhere now, on panels and articles. Everyone's talking about you. I think maybe we got off on the wrong foot." The wrong foot? It was almost laughable. "You didn't just put us on the wrong foot, Maya," I said evenly. "You tried to cut both of my legs out from under me." She rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on. That's dramatic." "No," I snapped, my voice firmer now. "What you did was deliberate. You turned people against me. You lied. You made me feel like I was nothing, and you enjoyed it." Her jaw tightened. "I was young, immature, maybe jealous. But you're thriving now, aren't you? Doesn't that mean it all worked out?" The audacity of her words made my blood boil. But instead of lashing out, I leaned back and studied her. She wasn't here to apologize. She was here to soothe her own guilt. Or worse, to ride on the coattails of my success. "No, Maya," I said quietly. It didn't work out because of you. It worked out in spite of you, and that's something you'll have to live with." Her face hardened. "So what? You're just going to hold this over me forever?" I shook my head. "I'm not holding it over you. I'm letting it go. But letting go doesn't mean letting you back in." For the first time, I saw a flicker of desperation in her eyes. She opened her mouth as if to argue, but no words came. I stood, left cash for my coffee, and walked out, my chest tight, but my shoulders lighter. 2 weeks later, it was Austin. I should have known he wouldn't stay silent for long. I was leaving a community event downtown, where Aaron and I had just screened another segment of our documentary. The night air was cool, the city buzzing, when I saw him leaning against the building across the street. "Ellie," he called, jogging toward me. I froze. He looked even worse than the last time. Unkempt beard, tired eyes, shoulders slumped as though life had beaten the fight out of him. "I just want 5 minutes," he said, hands raised. "Please." I hesitated, then nodded curtly. 5 minutes. We found a bench near the park. Austin sat down heavily, clasping his hands together. "I don't even know where to start," he admitted. "I was a fool. I let greed and lust ruin the best thing I ever had, and I've been paying for it ever since." I studied him, my arms crossed. "And you think telling me this fixes it?" "No," he said quickly. "I know nothing can fix it. But I need you to know. I never stopped regretting it." "Not once," I swallowed, memories flooding back. The nights I cried myself to sleep. The humiliation, the betrayal that had carved into me like glass. "Regret doesn't undo damage," I said softly. "You can't unbreak what you shattered." He nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. I needed you to hear it. I needed you to know that I see now how badly I hurt you, and I'm sorry." The word hung in the air. Sorry. I had waited years for it, dreamed of hearing it, and now that it was here, it felt almost hollow. Because healing hadn't come from his apology. It had come from me. I stood. "Austin, I accept that you're sorry, but I don't forgive you. Not because I'm holding a grudge, but because forgiveness isn't mine to give anymore. I already moved on." He looked up at me, stricken. "So that's it?" "That's it," I said firmly. "You'll have to live with your choices, and I'll keep living with mine. Goodbye, Austin." I walked away, my steps steady, my heart strangely calm. It wasn't victory I felt. It was closure. That night, I sat on my balcony again, the hum of New York wrapping around me like a blanket. I thought of Maya's desperate eyes, Austin's broken voice, and realized something profound. The past wasn't chasing me anymore. I had faced it, confronted it, and left it where it belonged, behind me. When Aaron called later, his voice buzzing with excitement about our next project, I smiled for real this time. I was no longer running from my story. I was shaping it, writing it, owning it, and the people who once tried to write me out of it, they were merely side characters now. I was the author. When I woke the next morning, sunlight spilled across my apartment, golden and warm, as if the city itself had turned into a quiet cheerleader. It was the first morning in years I felt light. No shadows clung to me. No echoes of what if whispered in my ears. Austin's apology, Maya's half-hearted attempt to reconnect, both were chapters I had finally closed. Now, it was time to write the next ones. Aaron and I had been working non-stop on our documentary series. The latest episode, focused on women entrepreneurs in underserved communities, had caught the attention of a major streaming service. They wanted to meet. I remember sitting across from Aaron in the sleek, glass-walled conference room, the city skyline stretching behind him. He tapped his pen nervously on the table while the executives scrolled through our pitch deck on their tablets. "So," one of them said finally, a tall woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper suit, "you're telling me this series can appeal globally?" "Yes," I answered without hesitation. "Because ambition, resilience, and justice, they're universal. Everyone has been overlooked at some point in their life. Everyone knows what it feels like to want a chance, Erin nodded in agreement. And Ellie has lived this story herself. That's why people connect with it. It's not just a show, it's lived experience. The executive leaned back, studying me. For a heartbeat. I thought she might dismiss us, but then she smiled. Let's do it. Walking out of that meeting, I could hardly breathe. We had a deal. Distribution, funding, exposure on a scale I had only dreamed of. Erin whooped and spun me around on the sidewalk like we'd just won the lottery. Ellie Martinez, he shouted. Your story is going global. I laughed, breathless, my cheeks aching from smiling so hard. It wasn't just about my career. It was about reclaiming everything I'd once lost. My name, my worth, my voice. But success, I quickly realized, wasn't just professional, it was personal. With my past firmly behind me, I began to explore the things I had put on hold for too long. Friendship, love, and the simple act of joy. I joined a dance class in Brooklyn, letting music carry me without worrying about who was watching. I spent weekends volunteering at a youth center, mentoring girls who reminded me of myself at 16, full of fire, but unsure of where to place it. And slowly, almost cautiously, I opened my heart again. Erin and I grew closer, not just as creative partners, but as something more. It wasn't a whirlwind romance, nor a desperate attempt to fill a void. It was steady, honest, born from mutual respect and the countless hours we had spent building something together. One evening, after we wrapped a shoot, he walked me home. The night was crisp, the city lights twinkling like a sea of stars. Ellie, he said, stopping mid-block, his expression serious. Do you ever think about what's next? Not just for the series, for you? I tilted my head, curious. What do you mean? I mean, he said, rubbing the back of his neck nervously. Do you see space in your life for more than work? For us? My chest tightened, not with fear, but with realization. I did see it. For the first time, I wanted it, I smiled. Yes, Erin, I do. Meanwhile, Maya and Austin's names surfaced occasionally, through mutual acquaintances, social media snippets, whispers from the past. Their lives weren't unraveling because of me. They were unraveling because of them. Maya had tried to launch a lifestyle brand, capitalizing on social media clout that had long since faded. It failed within 6 months. She had posted cryptic messages online about betrayal and fake friends. But anyone who knew her history could read between the lines. Austin, from what I heard, had bounced from job to job, never quite finding footing. His charm no longer opened doors the way it once did. Opportunities had slipped through his fingers like water. Once, I might have felt vindicated by their struggles. Now I simply felt detached. Their failures weren't my victories. My victories stood on their own, needing no comparison. The real victory came one fall afternoon. Our series premiered, and the streaming service organized a launch event in Manhattan. The venue was buzzing with energy. Journalists, fellow filmmakers, activists, and community leaders all gathered under one roof. Posters of our work lined the walls, my name bold at the bottom, created by Ellie Martinez. I stood on stage as the applause washed over me, my hands gripping the microphone, my heart swelling. Thank you, I began, my voice steady. When I started this journey, I didn't set out to prove anyone wrong. I set out to prove myself right. I wanted to believe that my story, and the stories of people like me, mattered. And today, standing here, I know they do. The audience clapped, some even standing. I scanned the crowd and spotted familiar faces. My dance classmates, the girls from the youth center, even my mother, who had flown in from Florida, tears glistening in her eyes. For once, the only thing I felt from their gaze was pride. Later that night, as the event wound down, Aaron and I slipped onto the balcony overlooking the glittering skyline. He clinked his glass gently against mine. To rising above, he said. I smiled, the words settling into me like a promise. To rising above. For a long time, we stood there in silence, the city stretching endlessly before us. The betrayal I had once thought would define me was now just a chapter, not the whole book. The people who had tried to break me had only fueled my transformation. I wasn't the girl crying at an engagement party anymore. I wasn't the woman hiding from whispers or shrinking under stares. I was Ellie Martinez, storyteller, builder, survivor, creator of her own destiny, and I was only just beginning. The call came on a gray Tuesday afternoon. I was in the middle of editing footage for our second season when my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. At first, I ignored it. Spam calls were just part of life in New York, but something made me answer on the third ring. Ellie? The voice was hoarse, unfamiliar, yet faintly recognizable. "This is she," I said cautiously. "It's Austin." The name alone sent a chill down my spine. I hadn't heard it spoken directly to me in years, yet instantly I was transported back to that night. The betrayal. The whispers, the humiliation. "What do you want?" My tone was clipped, controlled. He hesitated, then sighed. "I need to see you. Please." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him. Not because I wanted reconciliation, but because curiosity tugged at me. What could he possibly have to say after all this time? We met at a small cafe near Union Square, a place bustling enough that I wouldn't feel trapped. Austin was already seated when I arrived, hunched over like a man carrying the weight of a lifetime on his shoulders. His once confident demeanor, the easy smile, the crisp shirts, the careless arrogance, was gone. "Ellie," he said, standing awkwardly, "you look incredible." I didn't bother with niceties. "Why am I here, Austin?" He winced, sitting back down. "Because I owe you an apology." I folded my arms, skeptical. "You think after everything, a few words will fix it?" "No," he admitted quickly. "I know it won't, but I need to say it. I ruined us. I ruined you. I let Maya convince me you were jealous, vindictive, when really I was just too weak to see the truth. I studied him, searching for the manipulation I once knew so well. But there was only defeat. Dark circles under his eyes. A hand that trembled as he lifted his coffee. "What happened to you?" I asked finally. He gave a bitter laugh. "Karma. Plain and simple. Maya and I didn't last. We tried, but she burned through money faster than I could make it. When I lost my job, she bailed, took everything and left. Haven't heard from her in a year." For a moment, I almost pitied him, almost. Later that week, as if fate had a cruel sense of timing, Maya appeared too. She didn't call. She showed up. I was leaving the youth center one evening when I spotted her leaning against the hood of a beat-up car, her designer polish long gone. She looked older, sharper in a way that came from bitterness, not wisdom. "Ellie," she said, pushing off the car. "We need to talk." I stiffened. There's nothing left to say. Her eyes narrowed. "Don't be like that. We were family once." "No," I corrected her. "You were someone I trusted, and you destroyed that trust," she scoffed. "You think you're better than me now, just because you've got some flashy series and people clapping for you?" "I don't think I'm better," I replied evenly. "I know I made better choices. That's the difference." But Maya wasn't ready to leave. She followed me down the block, her words spilling out like poison. "You stole the life I was supposed to have. Do you know how many nights I've lain awake, watching you on magazine covers, on panels while I scrape by? You think you're a victim, Ellie? You were always the favorite. People loved your sweet little act, while I was painted as the villain." I stopped walking, turning to face her fully. "Painted? Maya, you were the villain. You lied. You spread rumors. You tried to destroy me because you couldn't stand that I might succeed on my own terms." Her jaw clenched. For the first time, she had no retort. Word about Maya and Austin's downfall began to spread, carried by the same whisper networks that had once carried their lies about me. It was strange. How quickly reputations could crumble when truth finally caught up. One evening, while scrolling through social media, I stumbled on a thread. "Remember Maya? Whatever happened to her? Didn't she blow all of Austin's money? Meanwhile, Ellie Martinez is out here winning awards. Crazy how tables turn." I didn't comment, didn't share. But I allowed myself a quiet smile. The true reckoning, however, came at an industry gala 2 months later. Aaron and I had been invited as honored guests, our series nominated for an award. The ballroom glimmered with chandeliers and the hum of conversation, a far cry from the dim, humiliating party where my betrayal had begun. And then, across the room, I saw them, Maya and Austin. They weren't dressed in designer gowns or sharp suits anymore. Their clothes were plain, borrowed maybe. They hovered at the edges, like ghosts at a party where they no longer belonged. Our eyes met, and for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt nothing. Their power over me was gone. Later that evening, when our series won the award, I walked to the stage with Aaron by my side. The applause thundered. Cameras flashing. I took the microphone. My heart steady. I dedicate this, I said, lifting the trophy, to everyone who has ever been underestimated, overlooked, or betrayed. Let them doubt you. Let them whisper. Because in the end, truth always stands taller than lies. The room erupted in cheers. From the corner of my eye, I saw Maya's face pale, Austin's shoulders sag. They had come, perhaps, hoping to reclaim some relevance. Instead, they had witnessed my triumph, an undeniable reminder of everything they had thrown away. That night, Aaron and I toasted on the rooftop of the venue, the city glittering below. "This feels like closure," he said. I nodded. "It is, but not because they lost, because I finally won, on my terms. Thus kill. Wind carried away the last fragments of resentment I had clung to. All that remained was peace. I didn't need Maya and Austin to suffer for me to rise, but seeing them face the reality of their own choices, that was the reckoning they could never escape. The morning after the gala, I woke to sunlight streaming through my apartment windows. For years I had dreaded mornings, because they meant facing another day defined by the betrayal that once consumed me. But this morning felt different. Lighter, as if a weight I'd carried for too long had finally been set down. Aaron was still, asleep on the couch, having crashed after our late-night celebration. The award trophy sat on the kitchen counter, catching the light and scattering it across the walls. It wasn't just metal and glass. It was proof, not to the world, but to myself, that I had survived, rebuilt, and flourished. A few days later, I received an email from Austin. The subject line simply read, "Thank you." Inside, the message was short. "Ellie, seeing you at the gala, standing on that stage, made me realize the full weight of my mistakes. You didn't just survive what I did to you. You thrived in spite of it. I'm not asking for forgiveness, but I hope one day I can forgive myself." Austin, I didn't reply, not out of cruelty, but because the chapter was closed. He didn't need my words. He needed to live with his own. As for Maya, her spiral continued. She tried briefly to claw her way back into relevance with half-hearted projects and desperate online posts. But the world had moved on. People saw through the glamour now, saw the pettiness underneath. Her fall was of her own making. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I simply let it be. Because the best revenge, I realized, wasn't her suffering. It was my peace. Life at the youth center became my anchor again. Working with the kids reminded me daily of where true meaning lay. These kids didn't care about galas, or headlines, or who betrayed whom years ago. They cared that someone showed up, listened, and believed in them. One afternoon, after a workout session, a girl named Jasmine lingered behind. She was shy, usually hanging at the edges. But that day, she looked at me with wide, searching eyes. "Miss Ellie," she said quietly, "is it true you used to be really sad? Like, people were mean to you, but now you're on TV and winning awards?" Her words caught me off guard. I crouched down so we were eye to eye. "Yes," I told her honestly. There was a time when I felt completely broken. People I trusted hurt me deeply, but I chose to keep going, to build something better. And now I get to stand here and tell you it's possible. She smiled. The kind of smile that comes from hope catching fire. Then maybe I can do it too. That moment meant more to me than any trophy ever could. Months passed, and the storm of Maya and Austin's downfall faded into background noise. I rarely thought of them anymore, except when someone asked about the early days of my career. Even then, I spoke less of their betrayal and more of the lessons I had learned, because that was the truth. The betrayal was only the beginning of my story. The real triumph was everything that came after. Aaron and I grew closer too. What began as friendship blossomed into something deeper. Steadier. Not the fiery, reckless kind of love I once thought I needed, but a partnership built on respect, laughter, and shared dreams. One evening, as we walked through Central Park, leaves crunching underfoot, Aaron slipped his hand into mine. "You know," he said, "if they hadn't tried to destroy you, maybe none of this would have happened. Not the series, not this work, not us." I thought about that for a moment. It was true. Out of devastation had come purpose, growth, even love. Funny, isn't it? I said softly. How the worst thing can sometimes lead to the best. He smiled, squeezing my hand. Funny and beautiful. The final test of my healing came unexpectedly, almost a year after the gala. I was at the grocery store, hair in a messy bun, wearing an old hoodie, when I turned a corner and nearly collided with Maya. She looked different, not just physically, though her once polished appearance was gone, but in the eyes, they weren't sharp anymore. They were tired, defeated. For a moment, we just stared at each other. The past surged between us like a living thing. "Ellie," she said at last, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't expect you to care, but I'm sorry for everything." There it was, the words I had once begged the universe to hear. I studied her, searching for sincerity. And this time, I found it, not in grand gestures, not in dramatic tears, but in the quiet crumbling of a person who had finally faced herself. "I don't hate you, Maya," I said softly. "I used to, but not anymore. I hope you find whatever it is you've been chasing." She blinked, surprised. Then she nodded and walked away, shoulders slumped. I didn't watch her go, because in that moment, I knew. I was free. The years rolled on, and my story became less about betrayal and more about resilience. The series expanded globally, inspiring countless viewers. The youth center flourished with new funding, and I built a life grounded not in revenge, but in joy. When people asked about Austin and Maya now, I simply said, they were part of my past, but not my future, because my future was mine to write. And so, as I sit here today, reflecting on everything, I realize something important. The betrayal that once defined me no longer owns me. I am not the girl who was humiliated at a party. I'm not the woman whispered about in shadows. I am Ellie Martinez, survivor, builder, dreamer, and finally, at peace. And if my story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that they too deserve respect and unconditional love. Because the greatest victory isn't proving others wrong. It's proving to yourself that you were right to keep going all along.